Okay, every morning when we wake up, our first reflex is to open our eyes, take a hot shower, open a door, and leave for school or work. Now, to imagine having no sight at all to accomplish the most simplest of daily tasks, such as opening of the door, for the most of us is a feat to be able to understand the frustration and demoralization that most visually handicapped individuals have to go through on a daily basis. But actually, this is very real for my friend Vinny, whom I met when I was volunteering for the Singapore Association for the Visually Handicapped, in short, also known as SAVH. Now, Vinny, being 23 this year, shared with me his very enriching story while we were travelling to a charity event specially catered for individuals who were visually impaired. Now, he was not born blind initially, but rather lost his eyesight during his days when he was in national service. Now, he taught me many things throughout our half-a-day trip from a cruise and a simple meal, on how to be grateful for the simple things that we can accomplish, and how the very fortunate people like us should take a step forward to help and shower those who are not as fortunate and those who are not as lucky as us with a little bit more care and concern. Now today, I would like to persuade you to spend a little time out of your busy schedule for being a very righteous and competitive NUS student to volunteer for the Singapore Association for the Visually Handicapped. Now, I will first be touching on the two benefits of volunteerism in general, as followed by the two reasons why we should volunteer for SAVH over other organizations that are present in Singapore. Now, I'm sure that for many of us, being molded by our educational system, would of course first approach the question of why should I volunteer instead of how should I volunteer? Now, a benefit of volunteerism that is usually not known to the masses is the improvement of one's professional self-image. Now, if you guys have actually taken the career building module NC1001 or NC100 this semester or the upcoming semester, you will actually learn that large companies such as CapitaLand do value volunteerism as an important attribute for their potential employees who turn up for their interviews. Now, volunteering outside of your busy schedule and work also demonstrates a certain extent of proper work-life balance and portrays an image of good time management and altruism, which many employers do look out for to cultivate a healthy working environment where productivity tends to thrive. Now, as the great Dalai Lama once said, if you want others to be happy, practice compassion. Now, if you want to be happy, practice compassion. Now, this then brings me to my second less tangible benefit of volunteerism, which is happiness. Now, through Vinny's sharing of his difficulties during daily activities such as running, actually deepened my empathy and actually showed me how to be very, very grateful to be just able to just run independently without any assistance at all. Now, ultimately being thankful for the simple things in life makes you happy. And also, to be able to mature emotionally also adapts you to how society functions and how to work and understand people, better in the future. Now, through a survey, it was actually found that 40% of the audience present would actually prefer to volunteer for organizations that aid troubled children, 45% for organizations that aid the elderly, such as hospices, and finally, 50% for organizations that are helping the visually handicapped, such as SAVH. Now, even though not many prefer to volunteer for SAVH due to personal preference, this then further brings out the need for people to step up to help out in organizations that do not garner a lot of volunteers or supporters for their events. Now, this then brings me to my first point of volunteering for SAVH, which is a shorter and easier training time frame for volunteers. Now, we have to understand there are a lot of organizations that require a lot of volunteers around Singapore. But we have to also understand that the nature behind every organization is different. When I take, for example, the organization that have to deal with troubled kids, usually require volunteers to be more highly trained in emotional interactions so as not to incur additional trauma or stress to the children involved. Now, during my national service, when I was initially tagged to Melrose Home as a volunteer, I had the idea of interacting with the kids through my visit. However, the volunteers were later on informed that dealing with kids in each age group usually requires for the volunteers to go through a more extensive round of training regarding sensitive issues, and it may not actually appear to be as easy as it seems. Now, as compared to when I volunteered for SAVH, a mandatory but short 40 minutes training is already sufficient for a volunteer to carry out his assigned tasks and responsibilities for the day itself. Now, recipients belonging to hospices, such as the Dover Hospice, are usually the elderly around the age of late 50s to 70s, and are usually more proficient in dialects such as Cantonese or Hokkien. So also from experience, when I volunteered for the Dover Hospice for Shears Hall, I did find it quite challenging to understand and communicate properly due to the evident language barrier that was present at the moment of time. Now, recipients from SAVH compose of a larger portion belonging to the younger generation, where there is less probability of a language barrier to hinder the interactions between volunteers and recipients. And finally, the visually handicapped also face indignant public discrimination due to their ability to interact socially is usually restricted, along with the conundrum of unemployment which they also have to worry about. Thus, without proper communication and a healthy relationship among individuals with different needs, the blind is usually consigned to a lifestyle of lower expectations and standards. There is also certain apprehension and awkwardness on the part of the sighted when dealing with the visually impaired, which could also impede relationships from being fostered or developed from the perspective of the visually handicapped individual. Now, according to the president of the Minnesota Parents for Blind Children Help Group, her son is usually treated with lower expectations due to his disability, and at one point of time even prohibited to participate in a non-visual woodworking class. 70% of the visually impaired people are usually unemployed or underemployed according to Independence Incorporation, where their jobs often revolve around public busking or just street performing. Thus, being subjected to an unintentional discrimination by the general public, it is more important how we should be more socially aware and reach out a helping hand to them even more. Thus, with experiencing first-hand or volunteering with SAVH, it can be seen that what these recipients hope for the most would be just a simple touch of humanity. So to put words into action, the most rudimentary step to initiate as a volunteer would be to fill out a volunteer's form that can be easily obtained from their website as reflected in the slide, where from there you can actually branch out to help out in different aspects such as the academic aspect or as a recreational volunteer for SAVH. Alternatively, you can also ring them up in the hotline provided in the slide or on their website, or actually send them an email expressing your interests and keeping yourself updated on their upcoming events, as well as ad hoc projects that can be sometimes organized by external outreach organizations. So at the end of my speech today, I'll hope that in the near future, when time permits you to take a little break out of your bustling schedule and do take the effort, the time, and the passion to volunteer for SAVH. And with that, I thank you for your kind attention. Wow.
Thanks, Jeremy. Everybody rate Jeremy, please.
Actually, I don't know whether it's being recorded because it's backed up.
What?
Yeah, I hope it
No,
is.
the lights go on.
Oh, okay.
Trust the IT guy.
He's not an IT guy.
Okay.